Hi, thanks so much for stopping by. So today I will be talking about the jade plant, or the Crassula ovata, commonly known as a jade plant, lucky plant, money tree. It's a succulent with small pink and white flowers, and it is native to KwaZulu-Natal province in Eastern Cape of South Africa and Mozambique. And this is a very common houseplant worldwide. I feel like if someone is into houseplants, or if someone wants to add a houseplant in their life, a lot of times you see this plant. And if you're new to having houseplants, you're new to gardening and things like that, I would recommend you start with this. This is a very easy plant. And I will give you my personal experience on this type of plant. So I actually have two jade plants, this kind of jade plant that's mine, and then my husband has three. This one I bought for me. I actually bought him the plant about 4 years ago for his birthday, and now it has given him 2 extra plants and 2 other plants that I just gave to my mother-in-law that I did grow that my husband thought was gonna be like dead. But I did, I was able to save it, and which is my first time to do, actually, because I'm not an expert. I'm not very lucky when it comes to propagating. So I gave those to her when it actually started to be okay. And I have 1 extra that I also saved that is still with me. So the reason I say this is a very good beginner plant is because you can put this in either low light, medium light, or high light setting. I probably should do a different video of like the difference in those, and also, you know, what you should do before you buy a plant. But anyway, so you can get this to go from all of that. However, if this is used to highlight, especially for, let's just say, how many years, when you put this in a drastic low light setting, it will completely shock your plant. So I do have some experience in that. I don't recommend it. And if you do have to do that, let's say you're moving, whatever reason, I would advise to get a lamp with an LED bulb, and it should have a daylight setting in there. You don't need a plant light. You don't really need a plant light. So anyway, I put cactus soil in here. This was a planter that I repurposed because this came with a different plant that I don't use it with anymore. And the reason the pot is really big is because I have an inkling of like how I have grown jade before, and they can grow pretty fast depending on how much light you give them. So that's why I put it in such a big pot versus on the size of the plant. I did just water this, so if you can see the dirt is still looking a little bit kind of like it just got watered. I watered this a couple days ago. I water this, and I will link down below what I have been using and what I currently use, because I did use a different fertilizer before, and I ran out. I now use a different brand of cactus fertilizer, and I will do that. I will do a product review on those though. I did already do one for the Dr. Earth one, and now I'm using Schultz. I will, I will do a product review on that one. So far, it hasn't hurt my plants using both of those separately and not together. You only do 1 fertilizer. You shouldn't be doubling up the fertilizer, because that can actually kill and burn your plants. Just be aware of that. So this can be in a low light setting. Low light means it might only get 1 hour of daylight if it's next to a window, or it doesn't have to be next to a window. It could be maybe about a foot away from a window. That's okay too. The higher the light, the faster this grows. That's just what this plant is. And what I would suggest is wherever you put this plant, when you get home or in your office, leave it there. Don't move it around so much, because When you do that, it does shock a plant, any plant you have, because plants are usually, I mean, in nature, plants aren't usually transported all the time. They stick to one spot and they acclimate in there, and they actually, you know, they have their roots in there, and they don't really have the necessity or the want to want to relocate. That's what humans do, and that's what animals do. That's not what plants do. So I always recommend to let them stay in one spot. If you don't know yet, I would suggest you look into your home first on where this plant might best fit before you get the plant, because then you might just be wasting your time, your money, and you're going to be stressed out if this plant starts to deteriorate. When this starts to yellow, it's probably because you've overwatered it. I have experience in regards to this being in gravel, being in cactus soil, and I prefer it in cactus soil. My husband prefers it in gravel, but that's a personal preference. You just need this to be in a fast draining type of soil. And because it is more of a part of the succulent family, that's why I really prefer using a cactus type of soil, not the all-purpose plant potting mix, and then add something else in there. I wouldn't recommend that. And the reason for that is it does enjoy the occasional watering, but rule of thumb with the succulents are they don't like to be sitting in a lot of moisture. They like to be watered because that's a part of their food, but they don't like to sit in it. It's just not the type of plant that they are. So you need something fast draining. My husband, again, prefers gravel. I don't really prefer that. But his is doing really well. I bought his, it was only this high, and now it's like this, like you can't even see it. Like it's pretty tall now. I would say about over 2 feet, 2 to 3 feet. And he does prune it, so because he wants to look at it, he wants to have it a specific look to that. I don't know if I'll do that with mine. But anyway, so I do give it fertilizer. I use cactus dirt. This sits right next to the window, but it has the least amount of light in that particular window. I have decided today that I will be switching it so you can have more light, because I want this to be bigger, and I'm replacing it with other plants that I know is very slow growing. This is one of the succulents that you can own that is actually somewhat fast growing in regards to the right elements to it. I also do supplement this and also my other plants with artificial light. I will link that down below. With the kind of lamp I use a floor lamp, and then the kind of bulb I use. And I think when you combine those two things together, because the lamp that I have is more of an industrial looking lamp, it doesn't have any shades. And I did pick that way just so it actually it actually hits so many different spots on all my plants. I only water this for this size, is the top inch to 1.5 inches. If it's bone dry or sand dry is what I usually consider it as, that's when I water it. And I water the entire pot. And every time I water, I do feed it fertilizer and a supplement. That's all I do. That's why if there's anybody there that wants to try to get into gardening, houseplant gardening, unless you're lucky enough to be able to keep this outside year round, I would suggest get a jade plant. It's very resilient. It's very easy. And I would recommend it a lot. Now, I've never had any luck in propagating this just by leaves, but I've had luck propagating, like I know how to propagate it if it's more of an established trunk, or, you know, with bark already. Like, let's just say in about a year or two from now, if I do decide to want to keep, because this, as I can see here, this is more than just one plant that they put together and they just shoved it together. It's actually more of 4 plants 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5 plants. I can actually separate these. And if I want to, I might want to do that, put it in a smaller pot. And what happens with that is they're more of succulents a lot of times tend to also like to be root bound. And in a sense that their roots really doesn't grow that fast in a way. So you can actually get away with a really small pot for this and it will flourish. So that's not really a problem. And I'm actually kind of thinking of switching this to a smaller pot because I have gotten this. I have had this for a few months now. It has grown, but it hasn't grown as fast as I would like. But we shall see if I will keep this in this pot or not. I will update you guys if anybody's interested in what's going on, probably like a year from now, just to see. This, when I say kind of in the fast growing with the succulent family, what I mean is like you really get to see a big difference versus a lot of other succulents that would grow in a year. There are other succulents that really doesn't grow, probably only grows like an inch or less in 1 year, or a cactus that's like that as a house plant, you know, because you have to think these plants were in, you know, when they're in nature, they have a lot more light than what they're going to be getting as a house plant. So they're bigger in the wild. I've seen a monstrous jade when I was in San Francisco years ago. It was bigger than me. It was pretty tall and it was an outside plant. It was pretty tall and it was so huge and like just bushy. It was amazing. Like my husband and I were just in awe of it because it was so beautiful. And at the time I did have my older jade, but this is my newer baby. I've only had her less than a year. All of my plants, I consider them all girls. And I always call them her or she. I don't think I have a boy plant that I consider. That's just my preference. That's just my preference. So that's what I do. I do feel that the fertilizer, for me, a lot of people always come up to me and say, you really have a green thumb, your plants flourish. That's not really true. They always ask me about my secret, and I always tell them it's very simple. It's just you have, number one, you have to know the type of plant that you're dealing with. Number two, you have to get them the right fertilizer if you choose to fertilize, which I always fertilize all my plants. And now, number three is make sure when to, not now, I mean like always, make sure to water it the way it's supposed to be watered. Don't just water it when it says water it every week or every 2 days or 3 days or every 2 weeks. That's not really what you're supposed to do. And the reason for that is just experience. I always tell people that are having problems with their plants. I'm even having problems with one of my plants right now. Not every plant is going to be bulletproof for everybody. It's just not going to happen, but you can try and always do what people have done successfully and kind of adapt to that. And you can tweak it to yourself and whatever might be best for you and your plant. But not all the directions you see online is actually going to work, because I actually always try to do that. And then I modify it to me, because every single time I buy a plant, there's directions. Oh, this is how often you water. This is how you water it. This is whatever, whatever, whatever. And I do that. And I've actually had a recent experience with the aglaonema. And my aglaonema almost died because online, everywhere I saw was the watering directions was going to be like here. And then the light information was also going to be like here. So it was burning and being overwatered at the same time. It wasn't happy. But now I've already tweaked that. So that's what I'm kind of saying. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. Do your research as a guide and then modify it to yourself. Like for this one. And I did mention earlier that this can have pink or white flowers. From my research, the only way you're going to have pink or white flowers is it could be really old, or it could be overly stressed. Overly stressed to a point in which there might be a probability, especially if you're doing it for the first time, there might be a probability of it that it will die. From the information that I've gathered, one person said you just stress it for a week and you should see blooms come out. And the reason for that is, if I believe, when you do have a plant that you can propagate so easily with leaves, there is no need for a seed. So there's no need to have a seed, which usually comes from a flower. So when a plant believes they're gonna die, or they're about to die, or they're at a certain age that they feel, I'm at that stage in my life that it's okay to grow flowers, to have seeds, or to have more of me. I'm sorry, I've had multiple head trauma, so I'm having a hard time getting this word out of my mind and out of my mouth. Then that's what they're gonna do. So it's different in the wild because it's not a controlled environment. So that's how you can see the flowers if you want to. I have personally never tried that. I've had a jade plant for about, well, my previous one was about 8 years old. This one less than a year old. My husband's is 4 years old. So, and I've never done that. My husband researched it actually, and he was the one that told me about that. And then I did my end of the research as well and asked people that have done it to their jade. And because they've done it so many times, they're not scared, they're not apprehensive. But someone like me who's never done it before, I don't feel that I want to risk my plant in getting hurt to gain some flowers. Like I think this is beautiful as is. I don't need flowers for it. I do have flowering plants and I love flowering plants, but I'm fine for my jade to just be foliage. It's okay. Again, this can tolerate low light. It can tolerate high light, and the more light you have, the faster it will grow, and the more light you have, the more frequently you're gonna water. That is the very much rule of thumb with plants. I really should do that in a different video, but anyway, it's up to you if you want to fertilize and supplement. I just started supplementing probably about less than a year ago. I love it. I feel like if you want to prune and you want to propagate, using the supplement that I have been using really, really works. And this is very simple. I gone through some nasty fungus gnats, and I was giving this diluted version of Dawn, and it was slowly killing most of my plants. They're all fine now, but this one never skipped a beat. Never, and they were getting the same dose. It never had any issues. It wasn't dying. Like, it's just so good. So this is what I'm saying. If you're a beginner, or you're one of those people that some people jokingly say, I'm a plant serial killer, you can try with this. It's very low maintenance, as I've said. I would suggest really if it's this size, if it's smaller, I would say 1 inch. If it's smaller than this, half the size or 3/4, I would say 1 inch of the top part of the soil. Make sure it's sand dry, and then you water. If it's about this size, I'd wait 1 to 1/2 inch. If it's bigger, I'd wait probably 2 inches. And if it's humongous, I'd probably wait more. And it just depends. Sometimes you want to try and see that if it starts to look very thin, like the leaves start to look really thin when you feel it. Right now, it's still a little chubby. But if it starts to be very thin, or a lot thinner than you're used to, that means it can, and the soil is already very dry, then it might be just only 2 inches for you, even if it's a humongous plant or a smaller plant. Like I said, just play it by ear for you too, because everybody's environment is different. Everybody's home is different. You just don't, like, when you add all the variables, everybody's home is entirely very unique. You do not need a humidifier for this plant. I think a lot of people in my plant groups, some of them put like humidifiers and things like that. If you don't want to get a humidifier, because those things can overheat too, and I do have a humidifier built in my home, but I also had a humidifier next to me on the side of my bed because of like congestion and things like that. But if you don't want to do something like that, what you can do is like, you know how this, I always have this underneath all of my planters because there's always drainage holes. What you could do is you can put about a half an inch to 3/4 inch of pebbles or gravel, and then put water on top of it. Make sure all the gravel or the pebbles are covered completely, like nothing is peeking out, and that actually helps with the humidity. So you don't really have to go get yourself like a crazy humidifier. You could just do that. And you know what the crazy part is, how easy it is? As soon as it hits the rocks or the pebbles or the gravel, just pour more water. Just add more water. Just check on it like every other day. You don't have to check on it all the time. So that is in case you want to do that. I don't believe this plant needs any kind of humidity, but if you want to, you can. And another thing, if you want to put that kind of situation in your plant, because of the humidity, there's always constant moisture, the more you're not going to water a plant. Those are usually recommended to like a lemon tree or an azalea. It's usually some kind of house plant that is like that you need a constant humidity to. But something like this that you are only using cactus soil, you don't really need to do any of that. I'm just trying to answer all the questions out there because I'm getting all of these things from different people, from my plant groups, from just questions on Instagram, people actually to my face. So I want to kind of sum it all up in this one video. I don't know what else I can add to this plant aside from I really, really love this plant. This is one of my favorite plants of all time. Even though I really do gravitate towards a lot of flowering plants, I really, really love this plant. And I remember my husband was like, we're talking about the jade plant he has and mine. And he was saying like a few months ago, he's like, what if our home is in, like, we'll have like 20 jade plants and it's all from my plant or your plant? Because we already had an extra 5 at the time when he was asking me that. And I said, that would be pretty amazing. That would be pretty amazing. So I gave his plant a few years ago, and then I got myself this plant. And then I believe what I want to do really is wait for this to grow. I want it to grow really bushy and tall. And then the bottom ones, because I like the way my husband's jade plant looks. Well, there's no foliage in the bottom, and it looks like a tree. So I kind of want to do that with mine. But mine is probably going to be, because it's 5 plants in one planter, I'm not sure yet if I want to split it up or I want to keep it as is and just kind of let 5 trees grow together, but make them no leaves in the bottom and just bark. And it will be, all the leaves would be like up here. I think that would look very, very beautiful. If there's something that I didn't answer, if there's something that was still unclear, because I tried to get it as much as I can in this video, let me know down below. I will answer all of your questions as much as I can, if I had experience in there. And again, these are all my personal experiences. If you guys want to just chit chat about jade plants or plants in general, I can talk to you about that all the time. I love talking about plants all day. I hope you enjoyed my video. You're going to hit the like button, subscribe, and of course the bell so you're notified every single time I do upload a new video. And if you want to connect with me with my social media accounts, it is down below in the description section. So just expand that. Everything that I'm using with this plant, or where you can get this plant, from the light to the fertilizer, all that good stuff, I will link it down below, so it's very convenient for you guys to do check that out. Thanks guys, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.